Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we are not talking about a specific variation of the Corelli variations by Rachmaninoff. Instead, in the middle of this set of variations, Rachmaninoff writes an intermezzo. That is going to be the transition that we have between variation number 13 and variation number 14. This is kind of the reset point for the whole piece. Now, if you remember every single variation up to this point, they have all been in the same key. That's the key of D minor. This intermezzo is going to transition us into a new key. And that new key that we'll start hearing in variation number 14 is the key of D flat major. So we're going from D minor to D flat major. They may not seem like a big deal, but the fact that we're a half step away in terms of keys and we're from a minor key into a major key is drastic. That half step relationship is not ordinary. We would think of maybe having a major variation in the key of F major, a key that is related to D minor. D flat major has 5 flats, D minor has 1 flat. They are very, very distant from each other. So the fact that we need an entire separate variation, this intermezzo, is a way for Rachmaninoff to get to that distant key of D flat major. So, what are we going to hear within this intermezzo? Well, we are always going to be thinking about the theme that we have. I will always play it every time we talk about one of these variations. Those 3 notes, da-dee-dum, those are always going to be the important staples to look for when we're talking about melodic development. If I play just the melodic part of this intermezzo, you'll hear that theme pretty clearly. The second and third measures. He's clearly just decorating that melodic material. Now, what is of more interest is what Rachmaninoff does with the harmonies beneath. Again, I'll always talk about D minor going to A major, and then D minor going to C major, and landing on F, and so on and so forth. I've talked about that so many times. Well, what do we get here in the beginning of the intermezzo? D minor? Ah, no, it's something more colorful. It's this G minor 7th chord. We're expecting A major. Are we going to get A major? It's this F sharp 7 chord. So it's just lots of colorful harmonies. Harmonies that we're not expecting. But what is the thorough line throughout all of these harmonies? If you listen to the top voice, you're going to hear a chromatic scale. The basis of a lot of what Rachmaninoff is doing within all of these variations on a theme of Corelli. We hear, and he's just using different colorful, somewhat jazzy harmonies, but moving in that linear way through the chromatic scale on the top voice of all of those chords. So we put it together and we get something really interesting. It gives this improvisatory character to this intermezzo. Again, the whole goal is to move from D minor to D flat. And Rachmaninoff spends 2 pages doing this. Now he's going to play those 4 or 5 measures. And then if you look at the score, he's going to have these small notes. And this is going to be like a cadenza, a very soloistic explosion of notes, this flurry of notes. And it'll happen with a big B in the bass. There'll be a bunch of notes, and it's going to take us to the third line of the intermezzo, which is going to be exactly what we had in the first line, but now a third above. So we still have that melodic material, but now the tensions are heightened because we're starting on an F instead of on a D. And the harmonies are also going to be raised up a couple steps. So instead of that G minor with a D in the bass, now we're going to have a harmony with an F in the bass. And we're still going to be moving the top note of all of these harmonies up by a half step chromatically. So there's that linear motion constantly happening throughout this entire intermezzo. Then, of course, we have the exact same thing happen. We're going to have a big flurry of notes right before our key change, where we have this D in the bass. Then finally, we have the change of key signature that you won't hear. But we get this big F in the bass. And we have all of this motion moving chromatically downwards after that. All the way down until we get to the last 12 notes, which is going to be our transition from D minor into D flat, finally completed. And then downbeat of variation number 14, we finally made it to D flat major. So this intermezzo was just a big exercise in improvisatory writing that Rachmaninoff is using as a way to kind of refocus. We've had lots of development throughout the keys of D minor, and now we're going to recenter, and we're going to finally have our first major variation in D flat major, and that's going to be at variation 14, which I will talk about tomorrow. But first, I want to play through the entirety of this intermezzo, because it's just an ingenious way of getting us to a new key and resetting so that we can hear our theme in a more simplified way, which I'll talk about tomorrow. So here is the intermezzo. So that is the intermezzo that we have between variation 13 and variation 14. Marks as the reset in the piece. Come back tomorrow, we'll talk about variation 14 and how it acts as basically a new theme that we have, but this time in a major key for the first time. So I will see you tomorrow. Thank you.